solo el eco de los cerros me respondía. Un día nos han dicho, al infiernillo vayan, allí vayan corriendo. Y hemos llegado todas las mujeres. ¡Ay! Y ahí hemos visto mamitas con sus guaguas muertas, hombres, mujeres, ancianos, y así, volteando cadáveres, me he ido muriendo de pena, diciéndome a mí misma que aunque sea muerta, seguiría buscando a mi hijo.
In a market in Lima, on a stage in Kampala, at a school in New Orleans, in communities all over the world, we are performing peace. We are actors and directors. We are writers and rappers. We are activists and storytellers.
What theater does is tell stories. I think that's what art does, tell stories. Stories simply being the way people make sense of their experience.
Far from the podiums of politicians, we engage communities fraught with injustice, fractured by war. We invite change through plays and operas, rituals and ceremonies, ciphers and story circles.
What is it that makes theatre extraordinary? What is it that makes it extraordinary enough for people to stop and think and change?
Embodied and immediate, performance issues a call for self-expression, cooperation, and imagination. Through performance, we are able to mourn the dead and the disappeared, to stand against oppression, to listen to our neighbors.
How can we be able to create the kinds of spaces where we can immerse ourselves in seeing what is going on right now around us, what is going on right now inside of us, between us.
As artists of peace-building performance, we have come together to document our work in order to learn from one another, strengthen our practice, and invite others to join our community. Shaking us out of the everyday, performance offers us a space in which to try on the possibilities of peace. Moving beyond the blindness of fear, we build this space with our bodies and our voices, with our compassion and our resolve. We illuminate it with the sparks of our stories.
My name is John O'Neill.
Yo me llamo Ana Correa.
My name is Polly Walker.
Soy Augusto Casafranca Cortés.
My name is Charles Mlekwa.
Eugene.
Roberta Levitou.
Diana Milosevic.
Marianne Hunter.
Roberto Varea. Growing up in Argentina, my life was very much marked by the number of military dictatorships that I had to endure. The military always denied there were disappearing people. The military was there to help everybody, and they were good, and only they needed to do some things would appear to be rather harshly because the house was in disarray, and father had to have a tough attitude with the children. When the counter-narrative was articulated through the theater, eventually through also protests as in the Mothers of Plaza de Mayo, who very consciously turned the script around on them. It's like, you are the bad guys, and the women, it's us who are the suffering and the good people, and it's you who are the bad guys in this script. To me, one of the most moving experiences was not a subversive political theater in predictable ways, but rather a very brave, very, very brave staging of Fuente Ovejuna. This play is actually based on a true story of a village that was oppressed by the king's envoy to the area that raped the women and killed the men. And the town decides to take justice in their own hands. When the men are discussing, should we do something about this? This is getting out of control, he's doing these things to us. The character Laurencia comes, knocks on their door. She's been raped by the commander. She has one of the most powerful and beautiful monologues in Spanish theater. Are you going to stay in this room forever discussing what you need to do about this, or are you going to do something about it? The director in this production, and it still gives me chills to remember that moment, he cast about 16 Laurencias for that monologue. There will be a Laurencia giving a monologue per 50 people or so and talking very directly to them. To hear 15, 16 Laurencias talk to the people that way, talking to us, every single time, in silence, the audience would stand up. And just that very simple gesture was really, it was an amazing act of resistance, and it was saying, we're standing here together listening to you. No matter what is going on, we understand, we're together, and this is not affecting the deepest fabric of community. And we're going to overcome. If done correctly, ethically, intelligently, and with heart, we have a most incredible tool to make connections, to help people feel a part of something, to be able to speak about things that otherwise we could have no way of saying or talking about.
What was the etymology of the word idiot? And the word idiot, and really it's again Greek word, and it means private person. Person that does not care, the person that cares only about her or his life. We start from the personal burning desire to create as artists, but that personal question is never private.
Državljana Savezne Republike Jugoslavije. Opet to je iz voza. I ubijeno. Samo zato što su imali muslimanske imena.
It was coincidence that we started the theater right when the Civil War started in 1991. Being Serbs in Belgrade, our government initiated the war, so it was absolutely done in our names. So we started to hear about horrors committed by our government. This is something that is very, very difficult to carry. So, and it is again this kind of, okay, but I'm not guilty, but I am guilty. And then, of course, theater helped me to transform this guilt more into the feeling of being responsible. The other thing that was happening was like a miracle, because it was forbidden to mention that we were in the war, but also in our city and in the city center we had many paramilitary people in different uniforms, pro-war nationalists wearing guns and weapons. We could have expected anything to happen, but the miracle was that nothing violent happened. We would see very aggressive people in the audience, and then their friends would be making them silent, like, hush, like, oh, I want to hear. I think it was the payback to the years of working in this very demanding manner. Somehow protected actors, because they were very focused, very committed, very clear, very precise. This kind of commitment was being kind of invisible shield from the violence. Suddenly, our discipline was stronger than us, and our discipline was stronger than our circumstances. When we speak about theater and peace building, first thing that is important to me is self-transformation. And I think it's something totally opposite of preaching, so that we are not here to preach or to teach people how to do things, but rather to create the space and to create the space for transformation. To have one more tool or weapon to act with. Weapon for peace. And I think theater can take those contradictions. And this is what I adore about theater. You can say the weapon for peace, and this very strong and for me very positive meaning.
That men do lives up to them, the evil that men do lives up to them, the evil that men do lives up to them.
I don't think that I'm a political writer or that I set out to be that. I think that politics grew upon me. Just, it put me in a corner until I had to put up my hands, and go like, hey, I think that that's what happened. I ended up writing a play called A Time of Fire. That play is a collection of my memory from the time I was about 6. When we were compelled by Idi Amin to go watch a firing squad, so people could be afraid of, opposing him. He was trying to remind the population that the power lay with the people and not with the people that they put in power. Of course, I was invited out for a meal and a conversation, and that is all it was. But for a while, I was aware that I'd been told, we are watching you.
Many of the great writers, they fled to Europe, and then self-censorship began. It became this thing where you realize that certain plays had the kind of consequence that made audiences come backstage and talk to you about the importance of what had just happened. I did write about a play of a 15-year-old girl who gets sexually abused by her stepfather. I got disturbed the day a young girl was taken to court. The lawyer goes something like, so tell us what happened. The girl says, he took me in a room and then he brought out his thing. And the lawyer is going, what thing? What thing? He gets a pen. This thing here? What? That thing? She cannot say penis. The law demands
that she said, or there's no case to answer. And the case got thrown out. But I didn't know what to do about that. And then I had two drunken women complain about theater in Uganda, saying, oh, it was doing irrelevant things when there were important things like this rampant sexual abuse of young children. Why don't they dare to write that? And I said, oh, thank you, Lord. This is what I should be doing.
Shida, what do you want?
I want my life. I want my sanity. I want my happiness. I want my girlhood, you devil!
Shida, I don't want any more trouble.
Are you finally admitting?
No, I'm not. I'm not admitting anything.
Your strong hands gripped my throat, making me wish I was dead!
Shida, go and die if you want. But get away from me.
I was working at the National Theatre. My office was like a counseling room. People just kept coming there and they were, oh, this happened. Now what do I do? What the play does is it demystifies or puts onto stage issues that are taboo, issues that are hidden. The actors, the songs, the writers, they can put a knife through that and cut it open. And once audiences, look deeply, then their own thinking is activated.
Is the use or the utilization of theater for a very, very clear social or political purpose, even legitimate? That's a dilemma. It's a dilemma and it's an argument. The answer, perhaps simplistic, that I like to give to that argument is that if it's good theater and that the artists are trying to express an artistic truth, which is all that artists really can try to do, whether they're writing, whether they're performing, whether they're directing, if that's certainly where the art is coming from and hoping to go to, then the instrumentalization question, that use is secondary.
Sometimes it's a very, very conscious agenda. Sometimes an artist will sit down and think, okay, or sometimes they're paid by some organization, but for me the one that moves me most, or I think the one that is of consequence, is when people just set out to say, this is what it means to be in this condition. I think peace building or peacemaking is about the human condition, and there you find a connection.
In the processes of creating these art objects or events, that's where also there's a certain aesthetic quality to it as well, if you know what I mean. The quality lies in the dialogue that takes place, in the negotiations between, and also the dilemmas that the artists encounter. Sometimes they want to do something, but it's impossible because the circumstances don't allow them. So those kinds of struggles. There is aesthetics in that as well.
I believe that we should work always from our personal needs. But then when that need is organically connected to the need of your community, or I would use the Greek word polis, then I think something real transformative happens.
Encontrar a Yuyashkani desde hace 28 años me permitió regresar y reconstruir mi identidad. Mis abuelas son serranas de la sierra. Pero cuando yo nací en Lima, mi mamá me cortaba el cabello y me ondulaba el cabello, ¿no? Y me vestía como una chica de la ciudad, porque nuestras abuelas no nos enseñaron a hablar quechua, porque querían que hablemos bien el castellano. La primera obra que yo hago con Yuyashkani Alparaico, hicimos la obra para presentarla en la ciudad y para que los obreros y la gente de la ciudad conociera la lucha de los campesinos en la sierra. Yo decido vestirme de campesina y tenía el pelo corto. Entonces me puse unas trenzas de lana. Me empecé a dejar mi pelo. Y descubrí por primera vez mi pelo. Lo había tenido 18 años cortado y ondulado. Y de repente mi abuela, que ya estaba vieja, anciana, me empezó a ver la transformación que iba ocurriendo en mí. Y ya viejita, un día me empezó a trenzar, a hacerme las trenzas y a contarme sus historias que nunca me había contado. Entonces, el teatro me permitió a mí reconstruir mi identidad, reconocer a mis abuelas, sentirme parte. Con Hecho en el Perú también tuve una relación muy importante con una mujer campesina. Hay un momento en la acción que yo hago y arrastro un costal de tierra seca. Y abro y empiezo a escarbar y levanto la tierra, y en determinado momento aparece una ropa, una camisa, y yo reconozco la camisa. Y saco la camisa y la empiezo a abrazar, porque es de mi hijo. Y esta mujer había pasado por eso, y estaba frente a mí, mirándome. Que después me dijo, sigue, Ana, sigue haciéndolo, porque es importante que la otra gente sepa lo que hicimos y lo que pasó. Yo he tenido oportunidad de hacer rosa cuchillo en diferentes países y me encuentro con el otro ser humano, porque yo misma encontré mis raíces. O sea, me he reconstruido para llegar ahí. Y siento que en la esencia de cualquier ser humano, seas de Israel, seas palestino, seas africano, ruso o quechua, en la esencia del ser está el encuentro.
I know how it feels to work from sun to sun. I know what it takes to put the blues on the run. If you ain't got no money, well, you can't have no fun. You work all the damn day. You still ain't done. Lord, it just ain't proper. Got to find a stopper. Sad sharecropper, no corn in the locker for a sick old pauper. Can't even call the doctor for the poop bebopper. Got no time to suffer. Struggle make me tougher. Tommy Too Tough. Tucker, check it out now. I'm Tommy Too Tough. Tucker, come on, shout now. I'm Tommy Too Tough. Yeah, I'm Tommy Too Tough. Yeah, Tommy Too Tough. I'm Tommy Tucker. I am a storyteller. Storyteller. Now I say storyteller instead of liar, 'Cause there's a heap of difference between a storyteller and a liar. A liar, that's somebody taking cover things over, mainly for his own private benefit. But the storyteller, that's somebody taking uncover things so everybody can get some good out of it. Yeah, I'm a storyteller. Oh, it's a heap of good meaning to be found in a story. You got the mind to hear. I'm the founder of Junebug Productions. Also, I was a co-founder of the Free Southern Theater in 1963. The job we thought theater should do was to support the efforts of people who were trying to improve the quality of life for oppressed and exploited people. The story circle is one way that a community can use to improve the quality of their relationship to each other. We're not arguing, we're not fussing, we're not saying you're wrong and I'm right. We're just telling stories. It happened to me. We use the story circle to gather pieces together to make plays and performances. What we can do as artists, we can let our imagination soar and say, I can envision the time when we will be able to plant the rice and eat it too. You know, I can see that. And I'm going to sit at the welcome table, me and my children and my family. We can do it. It doesn't happen in your head by itself or in my head by itself. It happens in this energy exchange that exists between us. We use our creative imaginations to construct a shared experience. The circle I'm going to tell you about, it occurred at the Frederick Douglass High School. I explained the rules to the process, and it went around once, and about half the people passed. After the second or third round, trying to get everybody the opportunity to tell, one of the students told a story about how he was living in his home without anyone else in it. He was alone. He was sending himself to school. And he just told the story of a day in his life. Every student in the circle now told a story. And it went from one level of pathos to another. And we understood something, all of us, about helping them to find access to the expressive potential that is being jammed up. And how much power it unleashes if people sit and listen. Just tell the story. And it will move you, it will move the people who are in the circle with you, and each of you and all of us collectively can move things in the world on the basis of those stories.
Community-based art and community-based work, that's where my passion is. Myself coming from a working class background and seeing the power that theatre had to engage people in conversation and engage people in encountering diversity and encountering different stories within their community. There's an organisation in Brisbane, Australia called Contact Inc, and they have worked with a community in Sunnybank and the place is fairly culturally diverse. There's young refugees, young Indigenous people, quite a few Asian young people, and there'd been quite a lot of violence. And that it had a lot to do with young people's assumptions and misconceptions about each other.
I've learnt a lot about, the African culture coming to these workshops. Helps me tear down a lot of stereotypes that kind of perceptions that you just pick up because you've seen them.
Theatre and peace building with young people is actually about the challenge of encountering the other through performance. It's about making really difficult decisions to start encountering the nature of their conflict, but on their own terms, by using their own cultural interests.
We are family, we got love, respect, and unity.
We're trying to come together as one. Because it seems that hip-hop is a language that everyone understands, so it bonds us together.
Art allows for those messy negotiations to happen, because peace building is messy. Art and theatre can be the best vehicles for kind of coping with that, because art brings out your play with metaphor. It opens up opportunities to express emotion without judgment. It opens up opportunities for a different way of viewing a particular situation, which is not necessarily a rational way, but which speaks to people's heart.
I would say, he might not be related to me by blood, but we're here. We got 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, nose, a heart, so I'd call him my brother.
Let me bust an introduction while I'm dropping the speed. It's the
Common ground.
contact, bringing freedom to your street. Now best believe we got power and the faith to proceed. Now let me put some time aside for the lyrical flow, for them to be heard and for y'all to know, for them to be heard and for y'all to know. We got faith and freedom. I was striving to survive. Make the best of what you have, 'cause you don't know when your life will end. We're up here together. I was striving to survive.
There's all kinds of complicated ethical dimensions to it that are important to be aware of and to be very honest about. There's the whole notion of power relations in this work. Whereas, let's say, a professional, even though you're trying to do it for the right reason, you still hold the purse strings, you still hold, at some important moments you take the executive artistic decisions, So one should be very honest about those things.
The responsibility of an artist to be very, very careful in finding the right kind of dialogue, so that we're very mindful of also other kinds of dynamics that could be occurring. And for example, gender dynamics, for example, regional dynamics. The risks are to actually do work that is very mediocre in quality and not given its right time to be digested, processed, and be ready to be offered to an audience.
I was struck that all of my training had not prepared me for the life that many of these artists were living. I thought I need to learn more about how to assess where I am, how to understand what my work is in that context, and how to behave appropriately, not just as an artist, but as a citizen.
To know each other is a multiple knowing. It's not just to hear from the other. It's to speak with the other. And I want you, let me the chance to interview you, not just you interview me. This is to build peace. This is the meaning to build peace.
After doing it for a long time, I can go back and look at times where actually I messed up. Fortunately, I was able to continue, but there are not too many places where we can come together to learn how to do this work.
Khmer Rouge regime happened from 1975 to 79. It was a genocide in which 1.7 million Cambodians were killed. Monks were targeted and killed. Intellectuals also targeted were artists. 80 to 90% of all the artists died during that time.
I ran away from the labor camp. I ate insects and rats. I slept underwater. You want to know my real crime? I stay alive.
Pati?
Yes?
You saw right. There was something at the bottom of my photo. A child's hand. They took off the blindfold, and my daughter, she reached up to me. I did not move. They shot her first. I did not protect her. She reached up to me. I was born in the labor camp in 1976. It just, brings a chill to me to do this play and to realize that, things like this happens not only in my family, but in other families too.
The reason I survived, I was stealing food from my neighbor, and I saved my portion for my dad because I realized my dad and I am the only one that left to survive. So that's only a little bit my story. I'll pass on to.
Okay, in 1975, when the Khmer Rouge came into power,
I would like to talk about the idea of remembering as a revolutionary act. There's the hope of not wanting to re-traumatize people that have survived genocides or any kind of trauma. But there's also the very, very deep hope of never again. And an example I would give is that in the schools in Cambodia now, the Pol Pot time, which is the Khmer Rouge regime, is no longer taught in the schools. So we get this sense of how memory is a dual entity that is very tricky to deal with. Every time that we would do these plays, afterwards people would just sit in their seats and no one would leave. And so we started having discussions afterwards. A lot of Cambodian women told me that it was a way for people to cry. The possibility of simply talking and remembering and telling stories was very healing. I think the key is that we are all so implicated in these issues because a lot of times Americans don't know a lot of things about these countries. Have we ourselves acknowledged the carpet bombing in Cambodia? When I asked a Cambodian friend about this, I said, do you think the U.S. should apologize for the carpet bombing? Or would it help if you got reparations? He just looks at me and says, the strong never apologize. How do we negotiate that issue? Because I think that really actually is staring us right in the face. My feeling of hope comes from the ability to learn to acknowledge.
semana pasada de ese mes de julio, mes sin agua, decidí apersonarme a la comisaría. El sargento, al verme entrar, se puso de pie. ¡Alfonso Cánepa! ¿Cómo está usted, mi sargento? Vengo a ver esa denuncia que dicen que me han hecho. ¿De qué me acusan ahora? ¡No te hagas el cojudo! ¡Eres un terrorista peligroso! Sabía que me acusarían de terrorista. Y ellos sabían que yo no lo era. Entonces, ¿qué querían que confiese?
¡Ay, en qué lío te metiste, hermanito!
Recuerdo que la presentamos en una plaza de un pueblito de altura, de la zona de guerra, donde comenzó el conflicto bélico en mi país, y hay un momento en la obra en que se revientan unos cohetes, esos pequeñitos, chiquititos, una sarta de cohetes, ¡pah! Reventaron los cohetes en medio de que toda la población estaba ahí en la plaza de armas mirándonos, y la gente recordó lo que acababa de pasar, los momentos de guerra, y se empezaron a retirar. Hacía esfuerzos por irse y no irse. Los que conocían del espectáculo decían, no se vayan, esto es una obra de teatro, recuerden, tienen que venir, no se vayan, no ha terminado la presentación. Bueno, y menos mal la gente se volvió a juntar. Y sin embargo no dejaba de reflexionar en cuán peligroso e importante es acercarnos a tocar esas situaciones de vida tan difíciles, ¿no? Bueno, acaba la obra y la gente no se iba. Y me paré sobre un tabladillo y digo, amigos, gracias, ya se ha terminado la obra, ahora pueden retirarse. Y no se iba la gente. Entonces yo dije, ¿ahora qué hago? Y miré las flores que están alrededor de una tumba de un desaparecido que hay en este espectáculo, y saqué una flor y me acerco a una primera persona que estaba delante y le doy a una señora la flor, como diciendo, ya se acabó. La gente empieza a formar cola detrás de la señora. Niños, hombres, mujeres, todo. Cuando se acababan las flores, iba repartiendo las velas. Y cuando se acababan las velas, volví a ver que habían unas hojas secas. Y daba las hojas secas. Y la gente con la misma recepción, con la misma calidez, retomaba, agarraba eso como si fuera un símbolo, ¿no? Y nos abrazábamos. No son cosas que nosotros la podamos racionalizar. Entonces nos estábamos reconciliando mutuamente. Creo que nos estábamos limpiando también. No, nos estábamos curando mutuamente. Creo que una comisión de la verdad usa sus propias herramientas, ¿no? De acercamiento a la gente y de investigación. Las nuestras más van por el lado sensible, ¿no? Las nuestras van por el lado más humano, ¿no? Nos gustaría mucho que haya siempre una relación. El arte no puede estar separado de esos problemas.
I grew up Cherokee of mixed descent on a ranch in a wilderness area in New Mexico. I heard stories from the elders there of the profound healing that came about for them of returning to their traditions. I think it's particularly effective in these ceremonies in colonized countries because it was actually a deliberate part of colonization to silence those other aspects. They were considered heathen. In Australia, I had the opportunity to be involved in a series of reconciliation ceremonies. The first one was with a friend of mine named Flo Watson, who's of the Sunset Yulanji people, and she was one of the stolen generations. It was official government policy to remove Aboriginal children from their parents for a whole range of reasons. I was at her home when the Lord Mayor sent around some representatives, and she said, oh, we're going to have these reconciliation ceremonies on the sites of the children's homes when we were taken away from our families. And then I went with her to that first ceremony, and she stood up and told her story.
My mum was part of the stolen generation. She was taken away at the age of 5. My mum's youngest brother was being grabbed by one of the troopers, and there were black and white troopers at that time. The white troopers trained the black troopers how to do it all. And my grandmother was shot and killed, so that must have been pretty hard for my mum to see, because she was then shot in her right leg because she tried to rescue her little brother. So that's a bit emotional for me.
In this whole gathering of white Australians and Aboriginal Australians, she told her story of what it was like for her to be taken away from her family. After that, Flo said to me, that day was the beginning of my healing. To see both white fellows and Aboriginal peoples come together on that place where so much pain happened, and to know that they heard my stories that had never been heard before with respect, and they were respectful of our ways of being. She said, I know I have more healing to do, but that was a real turning point, and I began to heal. So finding ways around that just exoticizing of Indigenous ceremony, and finding ways to invite people in ways where they can form new kinships.
Over these number of years that these rituals have been occurring, this has built a foundation for national processes of reconciliation. For example, the 2008 ceremonies in Parliament that accompanied the Prime Minister's official apology to the stolen generations.
Prime Minister, my grandchildren have handed you a gift, a message stick, a tangible symbol of today's ceremony. The message stick, it's a means of communication used by our peoples for thousands of years. Thank you very much, and welcome to the land of my ancestors.
Today we honour the Indigenous peoples of this land, the oldest continuing cultures in human history. We apologise for the laws and policies of successive parliaments. For the pain, suffering and hurt of these stolen generations, and for their families left behind, we say sorry. And for the indignity and degradation thus inflicted on a proud people and a proud culture, we say sorry. For the future, we take heart, resolving that this new page in the history of our great continent can now be written.
Sometimes I think I'm working with these groups of people and they're so few, and we're so scattered. And then I realize, no, that work's going on in Peru, and it's going on in Cambodia, and it's going on in the prisons in New Orleans. How can we then continue to support each other? We're not alone. We're not just these tiny, tiny flames. We're a pretty powerful fire.
How to oppose the violence if you don't want to become violent yourself, if you don't want to take a weapon yourself. For us was very clear, very concretely clear. We can oppose it through creating the sense for people. The place together, the place where you can have the light.
What theatre can do, which is The best they can do to help build a more just future is to try to engage so deeply and profoundly in the moment.
¿Queremos ser artistas o activistas políticos? ¿Qué queremos ser? Mejores seres humanos.
USCANI es una voz que se suma a ese gran proyecto de defender la vida en todas sus formas, ¿no? Y si para esto nos sirve el teatro, entonces vamos a seguir haciendo teatro hasta que nos quede las últimas energías de vida.
Theater requires engagement with the fundamental questions of our lives. These questions are crucial, essential. We're endangered by not answering them. All of these theater artists refuse to be in denial.
Lejos, lejos, y del fondo he visto venir una luz, y he mirado bien, y he visto llegar al gran Gapa, Gelwari Huiracocha, que me ha abierto sus brazos, y de en medio de su corazón ha salido mi hijo Liborio corriendo, a quien he abrazado y he besado por fin. Ay.
Be beautiful with light. I am asking that the place where my feet are shall be bright, that as far as I can see I shall follow it aright. I am asking for the courage to go forward through the shadow. I am asking toward the light. I am asking toward the light.
I arise.